everyone. I'm super excited to have our guest here today. And I just love saying her name. So it is Fiammetta Rakesano. Is that right?
That's right.
Fiammetta
Yeah.
Rakesano. It's like a music. It's so beautiful. And I would love to just to read her bio because it's just so rich and I couldn't say it any better way. Fiammetta is curandera who has been working with the healing plants of the Amazon region of Peru for over a decade. Living in the heart of the Amazon jungle, she continues her practice and learning through the careful guidance of her maestro in the Tabaquero and Ayahuasquero lineage. Born in the United States, she understands the worldview of Western people, yet that has been initiated into the ancient earth-based practices of the shamanic realm. She speaks the soul language of many, and this unique gift allows her to bridge the gap between modern people and these ancient healing practices. Her feminine presence offers a safe space for other women to heal and allows her to bring forth the feminine wisdom of Mother Earth and all of her healing and teaching medicine. Fiammetta leads a life of service, carrying the medicines to where they are called to go, yet always returning to the jungle to deepen into study and mastery. She's dedicated to sharing ceremony in a traditional way, utilizing Icaros, the sacred songs, chant of the plants, and the maintaining the purity of these rituals as they have been cultivated by the indigenous people of Amazon for thousands of years. So as I was reading this, there's a few things that just jumped on me, which was speaks the soul language of many. Like, this is my kind of music. And then I love how you bringing in the feminine energy into the Gaia. And because the shaman world is in our Western perspective usually a man, so seeing that kind of a shift is just a very refreshing to me to see that, because I think it's necessary to have the balance in everything, and especially in something like a soul speaking. So I love that. And I like how you are still learning the language really of the souls around you, which is also very humbling understanding. Like, you're not calling yourself, oh, I am the master of this. You are still very much the student. And I always call myself the student of life, because it's the minute you think you know something, you realize you know nothing. And isn't that kind of that journey of the plants that you are working with?
Absolutely. Yes, it is.
And so when I was looking at, your work, you working mainly with two master plans, and I like to actually look at them kind of almost, I think, like you, which is they are living beings. They are spirits. They have essence. They are very much alive. And so,
Mhm.
yes, we will talk about the one that everyone is familiar with, which is ayahuasca. But I really am intrigued by the tobacco, and everyone, including me, I have a memory of, my grandpa swinging on a chair in Europe and having this big, huge pipe and, relaxing with the tobacco. And then I do remember, my mom smoking cigarettes, and it was the most disgusting thing ever. Right. And so it's kind of like devolution. And I'm just talking about the last, 80 years of information. And of course, we're talking about now devolution of the thousands of years of tobacco. And I feel that tobacco is deserving some kind of a clarification because it has a bad rap. And I would love to hear your intake on that.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you. I'm happy to start there. Um, yeah, so here in South America and really throughout the Americas, in the past, tobacco has been considered like the principal healing plant of the Americas. Before, you know, colonization and westernization of these lands, where tobacco then was taken into a different context of addiction and all the chemicals now that are being put into cigarettes. The pure essence of tobacco is an extremely healing and plant, and here in the Amazon, we consider tobacco to be the king plant, la planta rey, and so we say that because once you have an understanding of plant spirits, like you briefly mentioned, that these are intelligent living beings, you come to find that tobacco has an incredibly powerful spirit, very, very powerful energetically and spiritually, this plant. It's very cleansing. And so one of the most common ways to work with tobacco, one of the most common ways I work with tobacco is through a tobacco cleanse ceremony, where we ingest the plant and it induces a cleanse, a purge. So it really has this ability to clean the body. And these powerful plant teachers, they work on every level of the being, not just the physical body, but also your energy body, your emotional body, your mental body, the spiritual body, and so they touch all of these parts of us, and so for example, if somebody down here in the Amazon, there's more of a people are more connected to the understandings of energy, and so if there's like a bad energy hanging around, it's like it's time to purge, because we also know in shamanism, we know that everything is connected. The physical is connected to the energetic, is connected to the spiritual, is connected to all of it, and so if there are unhealthy things in the body, then there are unhealthy things in the energy, and vice versa. And so working with the tobacco really helps to clear these things out of our field, out of our body. It's also very, very protective. It's a very protective spirit. And so, because to be able to go through a healing process with these plants, we have to get a little vulnerable. And to be able to purge oneself, it's a vulnerable process. And so the spirit of the tobacco is protecting you while cleaning you. And at the same time, it's also very grounding and very aligning, and helps to straighten out your energy. So it's this whole process of, clearing out the energies, straightening out the energies, grounding and connecting you so that your vital energy can flow properly through the being.
Oh, I love how you said that. So for the listeners who having a hard time grasping such an abstract idea, I as you were saying this, I'm like, how can our listeners can understand this? And I would like to just bring something more on a kindergarten level. Let's just say, I love saying the story about dandelion, right? I grew up with dandelions, and majority of people grow up in dandelions, and we see them all around us. They're hard to get rid of. The minute you want to kill one, 10 of them will be there, instead. And at the same time, if you look at it with the eyes of, oh my gosh, this is a pest, I need to get rid of it because I was told that this is a weed, that is your level of consciousness. And then there's another level of consciousness where you look at it and like, oh, there's something medicinal about it. I can make a tea out of this because my grandparents and the great grandparents were using this for blank, right? Whatever that is. Let's just say the root of the dandelion has a power to cleanse your liver, right? So then you look at that with different kind of eyes. You're like, oh wow, this is a plant that can help me to clear my liver. So that's another level of consciousness. Then you bring another level of consciousness and you look at it more from the spiritual aspect when you say, okay, so now I understand it's cleans the liver. Liver holds emotions. So not only that it cleans physically, but it also cleans up the emotions. So we bring in the emotional mental component to that. And then spiritually, we're looking at it more archetypally, like we seen like the resilience of that plant when you starts communing with it, if it's drinking or just sitting with it, communing on a spiritual level, we start getting that energy. If we open to it, to get the resilience within us, then we have that bright yellow color, which is the energy of the sun. It has the solar energy. Then again, if we can commune with that, that will give us that power of that third chakra, right? The resilience of that. And then it's a beautiful, in the end, that sphere of the magical moon energy, that just when you use your air, when you use the spirit of the air, it's just goes and just reproduces itself, and it brings that magic to it. So if we can understand just the simple concept of the dandelion, then we can step into the, like you were saying, the king of the plant, and see it the same way as, okay, if I would see it on the street, what would that mean to me? And if I would drink it, what would that mean to me on a physical level? And then, like you were saying, if I can understand that that plant has a spirit, what is the spirit? What personality is then I am actually bringing into? Because if we look at it with our friends and family, if we are hanging around with one person or two people, we pretty much start picking up their vibes, right? It's the same energy. We start communing with them, and we are start mixing. I think the plants, that kind of a concept, it's the same way, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah, and yeah, go ahead.
so I also found something very interesting, is that the botanical variety in Amazon, of tobacco has 18 times more nicotine than the cigarettes in the stores. However, what was interesting is that when they were trying to do a research on these shamans, they couldn't find one shaman with any signs of cancer.
Mm-hmm.
So, with that just simple kindergarten level understanding, we can now see that there's some kind of a misunderstanding that perhaps it's not the pure nicotine of this beautiful plant that make people sick, but it's the chemicals that they put in there.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad you want to simplify things, no? Because it really does require a different understanding and a different approach when we talk about these plants from normal, everyday, modern conceptualization. No, it really asks us to step into a different way of thinking about it and understanding. No, and absolutely, the tobacco that we work with here in the jungle is 100% organic, natural tobacco, no?
Mhm.
And there are no additives, there are no pesticides, nothing like this. And yeah, you're absolutely right. The sickness that comes from habitual smoking and things like this, the way that we kind of understand that here in these traditions is uh, the individual is out of right relationship to the plant,
Mhm.
because in shamanic practices, when we work with plant medicines, we have to form a relationship to this plant. If we want to be able to utilize the healing benefits of the plant for the people that we're working with, it requires a really strong and intimate relationship to this plant.
Mhm.
And to be able to create that relationship, there is a way to do that, and that's why I talk about so much the traditions
Mhm.
that I follow and the traditions that I'm a part of, because these are traditions that have been cultivated through thousands of years, many generations of people who have dedicated their lives to learning the proper way to work with these plants, and what
Mhm.
is beneficial and what is not, what is appropriate, what is not, what works and what doesn't.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so when we're in right relation with the plant, there is no damage, there is no harm, there is no sickness, because you're utilizing the plant in the healing way.
Mhm.
For an individual that smokes tobacco, cigarettes, chemicalized cigarettes every day, there is no spiritual awareness, there is no spiritual connection to the plant. No, they're just abusing it in a way. No, and
Mhm.
this goes for many different plants. Also, cannabis
Mhm.
is another one where people
Mhm.
abuse, and then what happens? They have
Mhm.
brain fog, they don't remember their dreams. And so
Mhm.
it's an understanding of being in right relationship and utilize it, because tobacco is a very powerful plant. And so if you're going to utilize it and you're not in right relationship with it, there is damage that can happen, because we also have an understanding here in the Amazon that all of the plants, all of the medicines, everything in nature has the positive and the negative, the healing and the poisonous. And it's all about the dose, and it's
Mhm.
all about the approach and knowing how to utilize the healing properties of the
Mhm.
plant, And so if we have no recognition or understanding of that, and we just take from the plant,
Yeah.
that's when things turn, and sickness is created.
Yes.
Hmm.
Oh, I like how you explained everything and makes absolutely sense. And also, isn't it pretty much how we approach life overall? When someone is
Mm.
looking for a love life, they go to a bar to look for a boyfriend or girlfriend, and in their mind is, what can I get? What can I get out of this? Like, what does she have in order
Hmm.
for me to feel good? I'm looking for my better half. And that's the same thing as approaching the plant. It's almost like it's that coexistence. It's like you also bring in something beautiful to the plant, because do you think that we all are here for purpose, including the plants? And if we look at it, the plants have such a joy being in purpose with the right alignment. It is going to work, just like if you are in relationship with your loved one and you're
Hmm.
looking at it from that healthy point of view, that what can I do for you? And that means it's going to come back to you. Like, what do you give, you're going to get back.
Absolutely. Yeah. This is the idea of like sacred reciprocity,
Hmm.
reciprocity, because, uh, you know, oh, I could go on and on about just the modern world and the way that modern cultures have developed.
Hmm.
We have really moved so far away from the spirit and spiritual connection. Our culture has no place for it.
Hmm.
And, in that development, we have moved very far into technology and the sciences and all of those wonderful and amazing things. But the trade-off was losing touch with our spiritual nature and our
Hmm.
spiritual connection to all things. And
Hmm.
so, if you take a look at like in different indigenous cultures from around the world, you can see still in those cultures these ideas that we're talking about sacred reciprocity, about how we are all a living part of one bigger living thing,
Hmm.
one organism, which is Gaia, which is the earth. And to be well, we have to also take care of what is around us, so that what is around us can take care of us. And there's an old saying that says, nothing no flower in nature blooms for itself. And so this is the idea of, we have to take care.
Yes. I like to, do something so simple sometimes that could have a bigger impact. For example, like there's a people out there and they have a very good intention and they have in this this noble ideas that they're going to be praying for Gaia or for water and all that. And that's wonderful. That's great. But sometimes these simple little things can make a big, huge difference. I remember I was in the eighth grade and I still remember my teacher, and it was end of the school year, last day in school. And he said something so profound that is just etched in my mind. He goes, all right, kids, I know you're going to go out there and you're going to be running around in the grass and pick weeds and flowers or whatever. And he says, think about it while you're doing that. Next time you pick a weed just for no reason, or the flower you like and you smell it and throw it out, think about why you're doing that. And maybe next time just leave it. And from that moment, I cannot bring myself into just ripping something just because it's there. I just can't do it. I mean, that is
Hmm.
so etched in my mind, because why should I do that? Like, why can somebody else enjoy that piece of a grass or the flower who's going to walk behind me? It's not
Hmm.
mine, it's nobody's, it's everyone's. And I'm not saying if you have garden of flowers not to collect it and bring it to the kitchen table. That's different. I'm just saying, just aimlessly, just do
Hmm.
aimless things without thinking about it. So we're going back into the tobacco and kind of the king of the plant. You were saying that it is a plant that has very protective properties. So you working with it, you will feel more guarded, like more protected. And also,
Hmm.
I feel that there is a, like you were saying, it's a divine gift, but it also is offered a lot to the natives, right? Like they offering it to the god. Can you tell us a little bit about that? How did that came in place? Like, so we working with it, but how did that came in to be the offerings?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So tobacco also has communication property. It
Mhm.
helps to communicate. And, you know, just to take a few steps back, the way that we can learn about these plants and find out what properties does this plant have, no, and how do we get to know that is through the very connection that we're speaking about, through people who still have a connection to spirit and to nature.
Mhm.
And there are different processes that we can go through to purify and to open our channel to be able to pick up on the subtle energies of a plant, because the plants, even the most powerful plants like tobacco, they speak subtly. They give their information in a subtle realm that normal thinking mind that has to go and do the job and do this can't connect to that space. So it requires the ability to go within, to quiet the mind, and to open the senses. And this is how all of these traditions learned what this plant does, what properties it has, what its spirit is like, what its personality is like, no? And
Mhm.
so tobacco has the power of communication as well. And this is why so many traditions utilize tobacco to pray, because when you take the tobacco into your hands and you communicate your prayer into it, and then you give it to the earth or you offer it wherever you're going to offer it, it has the ability to communicate that information where it needs to go. And again, like I said, it's like, people learned this through firsthand experience, through being able to connect to the plant and realize that that's what's happening. Huh?
I just had a vision as you were saying that, I had this vision of the elders sitting in a circle and passing, the tobacco pipe. And it's like the telephone game,
Hmm.
through the smoke, that message of
Mm-hmm.
whatever they wanted to accomplish is going through it. That's the
Mm-hmm.
vision I had. So, okay,
Mm-hmm.
so let's just move on to the second plant that you are working with. It's just more, I guess, popular, and that is the ayahuasca.
Mm-hmm.
And I just like to say the word ayahuasca. And I looked at the word, and aya means soul and huasca means vine. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's very clear that this is a plant that speaks to or through your soul. It's not interested in your personality, right? And would you call it a queen plant then if the other one is a king?
Hmm. Yeah, the name sometimes we give to ayahuasca is either like grandmother ayahuasca
Mm.
or madrecita, mother ayahuasca,
Okay.
because
Okay.
it very much has a very wise feminine presence. Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
understanding the most important property of ayahuasca is the
Dimethyltryptamine.
tryptamine, correct?
Yes. Yes.
DMT. So, when people are coming to you, what is the main reason why they want to go and experience?
Hmm.
Because I also learned that there is some DMT also in tobacco, not as much, but there's
Mm-hmm.
some. Actually, in all majority of living organism has DMT.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the DMT is the active ingredient. It's the active compound in ayahuasca, which means that is what creates the effects that the medicine is so well known for. The visions and, the feeling of your soul journeying through the spirit realm. This is from the DMT, but certainly, the plant herself has much, much more
Mhm.
to offer, only just than the journeying and the vision aspect. It's hard to generalize what people come to this medicine before, because everybody has their own calling, and to work with ayahuasca you really need to be called to do so, because you know uh, oftentimes, people who have the experience, they receive healing and their consciousness opens, and they feel like they want to go on the mountaintop and say to everybody, you have to drink ayahuasca. No, and sometimes what happens is those people will come on, you have to come, and they'll bring somebody in who's not really wanting it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's never a beneficial situation to be in, because
Mm-hmm.
the process, the process of working with ayahuasca for healing, I would say that is the majority of the reason that people come to ceremony, is they're trying to heal themselves or something. No,
Mm-hmm.
there's a very small percentage of people that are just curious. They just want to have the experience.
Mm-hmm.
But when I receive people into my ceremonies, I always ask them their intention for wanting to come, because working with the plant, it can be a very intense
Mm-hmm.
experience, and it also has the power to change your life,
Yeah.
and it's important to have a real reason to come and do such a thing, and
Mm-hmm.
not just because you want to give it a try and see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, because the process itself is, it can be the most incredibly beautiful thing that you could ever imagine. And sometimes it's also very difficult, because yeah, the healing, this medicine, she has a unique recipe of healing for each individual that comes. And this is where we can really understand that it is an intelligent plant spirit, because each person comes in and she goes to different places. She's working on different parts for each person. Everybody has such a unique
Mm-hmm.
experience, and for some people, they come in and they go right to their childhood and they start
Mm-hmm.
seeing things and understanding things and being able to finally let things go from their
Mm-hmm.
childhood. And like this, for other people, it's more about their character and how they move through the world, and learning to develop things. And then it's endless, the
Yeah.
possibilities are endless, but the medicine really does know what each person needs. And it's important to know that you have to put in a little bit of work
Yes.
sometimes if you want to come and receive the incredible power and
Yes.
benefit from this medicine. You have to do your part.
Yes. If ayahuasca carries this ability to bring light into the darkest places in you, if it's from your
Mhm.
childhood or past lives or current life or whatever that is, like you were saying, she knows exactly where the darkness is and she brings the light in. That's how I see it. And
Mhm.
it's beautiful to understand that ability that plant carries, and then um we have options to go into that healing if we want to. And like I said, the benefits have been already proven there, but not everyone, just like just like if we go to the doctor or specialist, we don't take 100% of what they said to heart. Do you find that a lot of people do the same thing? They just want to come back and come back and come back because they didn't listen to the first time that the what the plant said?
Well, again, it all happens. That happens
Yeah.
occasionally. I wouldn't say it's frequent, because, again, this medicine, oftentimes she has a way of
Hmm.
laying down the law with
Yeah.
people, where, it's like, if you come and you do your healing, right, and you clean out, you do your purging, the medicine helps you to set you straight, and we often say, like, she gives you homework. You see things and you realize things, and you're like, I have to do something, or I need to go and apologize to that person, or,
Mhm.
oh, I need to stop reacting in that way, etc., whatever it could be, right? If you go out into life and you don't do those things, one is just that, you're not making the most of
Mhm.
this blessing that you've been given,
Mhm.
by the medicine, to show you what you need to move you further on your path. No. And
Mhm.
two is that, if we don't pay attention to that part of it, and we come back because whatever it is, if you just want the journey, or you really like the songs, or the visions, or whatever, the medicine herself oftentimes has a way of kind of what can we say, like, in a symbolic way, like disciplining
Mhm.
people, of like, boom, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
You can't be granted access to the kingdom just because you come back time after time after time
Yeah.
after time to drink the medicine.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
One time talked to one shaman in Peru, and I asked him, and he was saying that many times it's only one time that this particular shaman would recommend. And he says, and you have to be ready. Like the shaman will decide if you're ready or not. And he was giving an example. He goes, I had a gentleman who was in the 50s and he wanted to do it for a long time and he couldn't until the shaman says, you're ready. And he did. And that was the only time that he needed it. So it's that, because if you understand how much power that particular plant has, you don't need to come back, really. But he did say, because I said, well, but you using it all the time. And he said to me, well, the people who work with the medicine and healers overall, they have to purge all the time because they're working with energies that they don't, it's not theirs. Would you agree with that? That the people who are working with energies, the healers, the shamans and so on, so they're using the medicine more so?
Yeah, I mean, of course, the people that do this work, it's the kind of thing where sometimes it's like many are called and few are chosen. Because to be able to really do what it takes to be able to carry this work with integrity and with the truth and the power of what it is, it requires an immense amount of training and preparation and sacrifice and fasting, and you have to face your own hell time and time and time and time again until you can rise through it. And so because in this day and age, this medicine is becoming popular, like you've said, and sometimes people are serving it, we could say, in maybe in a more casual way or just in a different way that's outside of tradition, where they offer this kind of therapy and they offer that kind of therapy and they also serve ayahuasca, but they're also doing a bunch of other, they're not following the traditional path of the curandero or the healer. That's a whole different thing, and yeah, that's a conversation perhaps for another time.
Well, it's like a simple saying it. It's like, if you want to really taste the real pizza, go to Naples, Italy.
Yeah.
That's where the pizza is. You're not going to go somewhere in India, ask for pizza and expect it to be as good as Italian pizza. I think that's just a simple way of saying this. Just go to the source. How did this beautiful soul plan called Your Soul? Like, how did that came about?
Yeah. Well, first, just to answer your question from before,
Yes.
it is absolutely necessary for somebody who is doing this kind of work to regularly purge and cleanse themselves. I just want that to be spoken and said, because it's extremely important. And this is, like we said, the integrity of the individual that you're going to be working with. If you want to go to a ceremony and you're wondering about the individual and you don't see that they have any kind of practice of their own to keep themselves clean and clear and connected to the tradition that they're working in, you want to be cautious, because this medicine is so powerful that when it's taken out of context and somebody doesn't know how to protect the space from dark energies, when somebody doesn't know how to sustain someone's spirit as they're journeying through the spirit world, it can become very dangerous. So yeah, in the 1970s, was the decade when ayahuasca first sort of came up and out of the jungle. Previously, it was only worked with here in the Amazon through indigenous communities, no? And in the 1970s, and also in those times, in the old times, really it was only the shaman that would drink the medicine. And the shaman was the one that would, journey and either find the reason for the sickness or whatever problem that the people came with. The shaman was the one to journey and to find the healing or find the remedy or whatever it was. And in the 1970s, there was an evolution that happened where foreign people started to come and have direct access to the plant and to the medicine themselves. And also, that was when the medicine started to come up and out of the jungle. Now we see ceremonies in Europe, on every continent. Now there's ayahuasca, and certainly there are different ways to look at that kind of thing. But what I have come to understand is that the medicine herself is the one that made the choice to come up and out. Because myself, for example, I am in service to the medicine, also to the healing and to people, no, to humanity, but in service to the medicine. And that means that I carry her around to different places, because not everybody can come to the jungle, to receive the healing. And so, what I have seen is that it was a conscious choice from the medicine to now change the way that she is accessible to people, because at the same time, now humanity, our consciousness is evolving in a way that in all of this recorded history we have not seen before. There are more people awakening, and things are moving in such a way that the medicine is helping so many people. When it's utilized in a responsible setting, it really has the capacity to help tremendously. And as we're moving through this evolution of consciousness, all of humanity, it has incredible benefit for that. And so I think that is why that change happened. And for myself, when people ask me, like, how did you get to do what you're doing? Really, it's not something that I was looking for. I was in upstate New York, and I was working at a co-op at the time. And an individual came into the store with a woman that I knew. And, it was one of those moments where I saw this individual, and there was like this, like electric kind of feeling. It's like, what is this? I don't know. And they came around my line, and he passed me a note and invited me to an ayahuasca ceremony. And it was the facilitator. It was the person who served the medicine. And he gave me his phone number. He's like, if you have questions, give me a call. I can explain it to you. And I'm like, okay. So I gave him a call, and to make a long story short, he really informed me about the medicine, and eventually I had my first ceremony, and kind of right away I was brought in as like a helper. And so, within my first maybe 5 ceremonies, I was being asked to help people get to the bathroom and clean out the buckets and do all these things, and who knows, what this individual saw in me to ask me, right away to step in like this. And then eventually, after a couple of years of working with the medicine there in New York, I really felt a very strong calling that I had to come down to the jungle to know the home of the medicine and the traditions and everything here. And so I came actually to where I live now, Iquitos. I came and yeah, it was a long journey with a lot of learning through the way. I also had to learn a lot about the dark side of this medicine, because there are people who are abusing it, and there are people who are utilizing it to manipulate energy and other people and money and all of these things. And I had to learn those lessons. And at one point it was like, after some really hard lessons, I went back to New York, and it was like, okay, like really have to think about this, and it was the kind of thing where, I don't know if you've ever experienced, but when you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing in your life, everything falls apart. Yes. I lost my job, my car broke down, I lost my apartment, friendships were just like everything in New York just started to dissolve. And at the same time, I had invitations to come back to Peru. There was a retreat center that a friend of mine owns, and he, invited me to come and to volunteer and to, diet, do a traditional dieta. And this is how we really learn with the plants, no? And so I just said, okay, I have to listen, because I, from the very beginning, had this calling. I saw myself doing this work, but at the same time, I had to get through a lot of feelings of like, who do I think I am? This white girl from New York, upstate New York, like doing this work, like it's impossible, no? But life made it so that I couldn't do anything else, And so I went back to Peru, and I stayed for about half a year, and I was volunteering, and that was really when I began to do the dietas and really start to deepen into the training. Eventually, I met my ex-husband, who also was a medicine carrier, and we started to work together, in the ceremonies. And throughout the time of our relationship, it was about 7 years, I really kind of like finished off the training, if you will, to be
Mm-hmm.
able to then hold the space myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is how I got to be where I am today, and it really is the kind of thing where I feel very strongly that there's different cultures throughout the world, shamanic cultures where some of them follow a lineage, like the grandfather was a shaman, the father is a shaman, the son will be a shaman, his son will be a shaman, no? But there are other cultures in the world where it doesn't necessarily follow lineage. A child is born, and the shamans of the community know that that one is going to be a shaman. It doesn't matter if his parents were or not, no? And so,
It's
yeah,
it's
this is where I see.
it's almost similar as you picking Dalai Lama, right? It's not the
Mm-hmm.
lineage thing. It's just they go
Mm-hmm.
and look for it or they get guided where that is. So I 100% agree with you. The
Mm-hmm.
lineage is one way, but then there is just the soul of that person will be called in certain
Correct.
places. And I very much resonate with what you're saying. If you're not doing something that your soul came here to do, you will be humbled
Yeah.
in a very, very big way. Um, last question about that one, and then we'll talk about your offerings. Have you actually heard or seen the messages from ayahuasca, just like saying welcome or I'm so happy you're doing this, or like some kind of a validation from her herself?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes. There were many validations over the years,
yeah.
and in the first couple of years when I started doing ceremonies, I had visions of myself in my own temple serving the medicine. No, and at that
That's
time, like I
awesome.
said, it was like, oh my God, it was kind of like
It's like,
scary, like,
oh no.
yeah, I don't know, I don't want that.
Yes,
Um,
yeah, that
and
is
then
awesome.
when the time came, when with my ex-husband, when we had our own retreat center, it was the very first night of our brand new temple, and I sat down in my spot, and before I even drank the medicine, I remembered the vision that I had, and it was
Wow.
that moment. No, and so there's been many, many things along the way. And in fact, my teacher here in Iquitos, he says, to be able to do this work, to work with these plants, nature itself has to give you permission.
Hmm.
And if that doesn't happen, then it
Yeah.
doesn't happen, and what that looks like is for each individual to find out, and you
Hmm.
don't know until it happens. And when he told me that, I was like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
and then the experience came, and so
Yeah.
it's very much that kind of thing.
Yeah. It's I feel it's the same way with intuition, is that you only gonna get the information you are worthy of getting.
Hmm.
So we are all intuitive, right? But certain people get so much more than others, and it just has to do with the level of consciousness that you are able to work with.
Hmm.
So now let's talk about your fun things that you're offering. And I had my
Hmm.
okay. So you have the what's the next dieta that you're offering in Peru?
Yeah. So actually this Saturday begins
Oh.
the upcoming diet. I'm just getting ready here. People are traveling now on their way here. So I offer the master plant dietas twice a year here in the
Mhm.
Amazon. Sometimes there's some extra offerings, but there's always two offerings a year down here. And then ceremonies, I'm offering several times a year, which would be ayahuasca or tobacco. The master plant dieta, it's working with a separate plant, which I don't know how much time we have. We didn't get a chance to really talk much about that, but it's a whole different process. It's a retreat process where
Mhm.
we go into isolation and we work with, other plants that are not psychoactive, and we drink the infusion, and through the we're, and at the same time we're doing a detox, a
Mhm.
cleanse with our food, and so at the same as we're doing this whole process, we're able to connect to the essence of the plant and receive
Mhm.
the healing, receive the information. So that's what those are the master plant dietas, which all of that information is on my website as
And
well if
how
anyone's
many
interested.
days are those? Like 2 weeks, 10 days?
So the basic is 1 week.
1 week. Okay.
Yeah, it's 1 week, and it can go for longer as well. But 1 week is sort of the minimum. So it's a
Mhm.
good place to start.
Okay. And
Yeah.
then you have something in October. That's the
Yeah,
second one.
the next one coming up in October, yes, which
Mhm.
it's almost full at this point. There's a couple spots
And
available.
how many people do you usually have in your groups?
Right now it's a maximum 12 people.
12 people.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, for the dieta.
Do you
Mm-hmm.
so you were saying you are in Iquitos,
Iquitos.
Iquitos, and so when
Mm-hmm.
people will fly to Peru, where would like which airport would they go to?
So most international flights into Peru arrive into Lima, which is the
Hmm.
capital. And then you just take one more flight about an hour and a half from Lima to Iquitos. Uh-huh.
Okay. Okay, and then you guys are in that beautiful setup there. Let's see. Do you offer privates if people want to just go by themselves? Do you offer that? You
I
do.
do, yeah.
Hmm.
For anyone interested in doing work, I just recommend that they reach out
Hmm.
because, as you mentioned from the other shaman that you spoke to, I have a whole process of, filtering people and
Hmm. Yeah.
getting to know people and seeing if someone actually is apt and ready for this work or
Hmm.
how we need to approach things, no? And
Hmm.
so the best way, if there's interest, is to just be in contact with me directly
Hmm.
through email, WhatsApp.
And can you tell us how can people reach you?
Yeah. So on my website,
Which
Fiammetta
is?
Roquesano, yeah, Fiammetta Roquesano. Hopefully we can put the
Yes,
details
of
in
course.
somewhere. You can sign up for my email list there on the website, or
Hmm.
you can also add yourself to some of the WhatsApp groups that I have.
Hmm.
I work mostly in the U.S. and Mexico,
Hmm.
but really, again, I go where the medicine is called to go.
Okay.
So. But in Mexico, I usually work through WhatsApp groups, and in the United States, I work through the email.
Hmm.
So wherever people are located, they can sign up for the appropriate groups or lists. And this is the best way to be in touch because whenever I have an offering, whether like right now, for example, I have these dietas coming up, and then in July I'll be headed to the United States to share ceremonies through the summer,
Hmm.
and so I share like
Hmm.
an email blast, with my schedule and all of the things that I have coming up, and so it's a good way to stay in the loop.
That's
Hmm.
that's wonderful. Well, thank you so much for
Thank
spending
you.
time with all of us. That was such a informational experience, and we had some taste of these beautiful plants,
Mhm.
tobacco and ayahuasca. And I hope that people will reach out to you. And I'm very much thanking you for your wonderful stay with us.
Oh, thank you so much, Lenka. It was a pleasure and an honor to be able to connect today. Thank you.
Thank you.